where it is the trade-offs in PPC. Now, I'll let you open up the conversation about this one, because I actually, like, when you mentioned this, I'm like, this is good, because this is pretty much the biggest conversation that keeps happening online, on Reddit, on LinkedIn, is the trade-offs for both sides. So
yeah, to set the context, really, any new technological change, whether that's this revolution of AI, whether it's a new feature or a new platform in the marketing sphere, you're going to have people that are creating and building new tactics and strategy and publicizing those things about that new technology or that new strategy, whatever, right? But within that, we always have come back to, you and I in this podcast, first principles, because those at majority of the time don't really change that much, right? We're talking 80-85% or something, right? If we had to put a number to it. It's those little things that are going to change because we have to keep up with the new settings. Sometimes we have to take those new settings in order to take that old principle and bring it along into this new environment where these new settings or these new tech are, right? But within that conversation, it always comes back to advertising or marketing is going to be an investment, right? You're pushing money from one place to another. You're trying to maximize profits, whatever it is. So in that, you're inherently always going to have trade-offs. Now, the thing is, as great on paper as that sounds and makes sense logically, great. There's going to be trade-offs. The reality is, going back to you talking about now doing ads for your own business, sometimes when the business, especially when the business is not doing well, you can get really emotionally attached to every click, what the cost per clicks are. You sort of hyper focus on the very granular details that in some cases can really get in the way. And then you start looking for perfect strategies, right? Perfect hacks, things that are going to cover everything you could possibly think of. So I just wanted to have a chat today and talk about the most common trade-offs that we see consistently year over year, regardless of the technical landscape and the changes in Google Ads UI.
Love it, man. So I reckon the first one is the obvious one: automation / AI versus manual control. Shall we start there? What are your thoughts?
That's actually literally the same one I was thinking. Yeah, because
I know you mentioned that.
Right. Well, that sounded familiar. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is I think at the end of the day, if I had to really underline it, automation it's not, unless you set it up this way, it's not bidding for margin, right? You need to be giving it the things, which is the control side, that are going to lead it in the right direction. But regardless, you do need to find that trade-off. There's going to be a middle ground. This will be the whole theme of the topic, is finding that balanced middle ground using data analytics. That is your tool for this, is finding how much control can we sacrifice in order for these algorithms to find the right audiences, to design the right messaging and show the right messaging to the right person at the right time. So we're trying to both use the automation for its own signals that it's figuring out, as well as control not only the insights we're getting from the things that we're trying to accomplish, but also so that we can keep making sure and coaxing it along the way and it doesn't fall off of a cliff.
Yeah, I love it. I think, the thing that pops to mind for me is you've got to program the machine and then the machine will work for you. But Google is not like a out-of-the-box solution, cookie cutter thing. You've got to really set the parameters, the outcomes, and the guidance for it. And one of the biggest things is just making sure that all your outcome-based points that you want to be achieving, be it conversions or whatever results you're achieving, you have maximum manual control at the start over that to ensure that you're really going to Google or Facebook, whatever it is, this is the outcome. And you've done everything you can to maximize the amount of those volumes of that early on. So then when you start to transition over to more of an automation model, you can give it that direction. The biggest risk is people still treat these solutions like they're an out-of-box solution that's going to give them some magical hack. They flick on a button and then it just fixes the business,
right?
And without direction, without clarity. And people are like, yeah, we know what we want. It's like, you actually don't, because when you dive deeper with a lot of businesses, their tracking, their settings, their everything, it's not done properly. So if it hasn't been done properly, what are you giving the machine? Like the whole garbage in, garbage out is, if you're not giving a very clear, specific outcome and you've given enough data for it to work with, that's when bad stuff happens. But when you do have that, and this is why people work with us, is so that when they start off with, we have more aggressive control over it. So we like are really based on like, you know, our decades of experience, is that we're really getting to that outcome point very manually, very meticulously. So when we start to transition over to these automated models, the automated model knows exactly the specific direction to go, and not a general direction, but very specific. And that's why you and I obviously get really good results, is because it's not one or the other. It's like it's one and the other. But I would always say, and this is, I don't know if this sounds like common sense, but it's usually not. You've got to start off with maximum manual control as possible in any way possible, especially in a world where the Google and Facebook products are moving more to the automation style, where it's like, just put in some assets and we'll do whatever you can do to be macro controlling is do that. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Okay. Next one I wanted to cover was scale versus granularity. This is really relevant because I think when we get into the world of looking for the perfect strategy, the next shiny object, structure, or whatever it is, we really have to contend with over optimization, where we're actually hurting results by getting way too granular with our structure, and we're spreading the data signals out, which makes it hard for the automation as well as the human to analyze that data and make optimizations around. So that is something we always got to be careful of, is if we get way too granular, not only are we maybe making our jobs harder, but we're actually adding busy work that isn't maybe going to lead to the high impact value that we're actually getting paid to do as PPC providers.
Yeah. So let's define what scale and granularity are, because scale is an interesting word. I'd love to know what your definition is so we can map that out mentally. But granularity, that is very interesting, because I think I'm granular based on my direct experience. But I've seen accounts that are granular. I'm like, this is disgusting. As in like, every keyword has its own campaign.
Yeah.
Like, you know, those ones where it'd be like a phrase match campaign and then an exact match.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's like, I still see it. It's wild.
Yeah.
So what would you define as the scale approach versus the granularity approach?
I think just to make it more clear, the difference outside of the word scale, to your point, because that can be really, really vague. It's essentially, are we talking about how granular of a structure do we want to get versus how consolidated and simplified of a structure do we want to get, right? So if you want to really say it differently, it's really going to be consolidation versus granularity and finding that balance. Now, the reality is, as you test and experiment into new ventures within the account, you're launching new products, you're going into new territory in terms of targeting, you're trying out new messaging, you're actually going to have to find at certain levels that some things need to be very granularly controlled and set up, and other things actually don't do well at that level of granularity, and you actually need to consolidate. And sometimes, you know, you start consolidated and you get more granular. I tend to default that way. Really, again, a lot of nuance involved in that, but I say you want to start a little bit more simple, consolidate the data signals, and you can always get more granular later. There are going to be exceptions to that, of course.
Love it. I'm just writing down some notes right now. So yeah, I do the same. I think starting off with like a simple but clear structure is the most important thing. So that way, consolidate. It's not an all or nothing, as in like you put everything in one campaign or you split them all out individually. It's the middle area, and the consolidation could even be like product groups or keyword themes or different lines of business. The granularity is excellent over time. I've seen a lot of people destroy their accounts basically by going too granular at the start.
Oh, yeah.
And then like nothing serves, not enough data, budgets are split out to like $2 a campaign type of You see those ones where it's like their budget is, you know, whatever it is, a few $1,000s a month. But then because they've got so many campaigns, it's got like $5 a day, $10 a day, but the cost per click is like $6. So you're only going to get 1 to 2 clicks a day, where the data, the significance of the data is not there. The other side of it is the consolidated approach. I actually feel like people do that on the other side equally as much, but in such a lazy way that it's very, there's just too much in one place, where if you need to do any sort of reporting, it's almost near impossible. And if you need to then go, wow, these keywords, these products are going really well, let's amplify it. It's like, well, Now I'm going to have to split it out. So like that granularity comes. So you got to decide. For my direct experience, it's use consolidation just for data acquisition to really see what it's like when you've got money going to one pool. But once you start to find trends, you do start to pull it out dependent on. But every business is different.
Right.
And like it's all in the middle. And it's got to be dependent on the business, the lines of product, the intent. Because there's so many businesses that there would be one keyword in the market that just like sucks out all their budget, but it may not be the highest intent keyword. Or there might be a product that's really popular, but the margins aren't good, and it just cannibalizes the whole budget. So
that's why you need to work with somebody that actually knows what they're doing, because they're going to help you manage all those things. The risk mitigation, where's your level of risk tolerance, what kind of budget do we have available, what marketplace is actually available for that new launch. They can assess those things for you, and they can help you decide, or they should be probably doing it just for you. This is the structure we're going to start with, but believe me, we're going to be testing other things, and those things aren't always going to work out. If you're being with someone that's real, they're going to tell you straight up, this may or may not work. We're going to do the best thing that we can here, but sometimes you got to pull it back, and it's kind of frustrating because you want that level of control. You have an intuition through experience that it is going to work better, and sometimes you just don't. In reality, folks, you just don't always have enough data to make this data-driven decision. Sometimes you just won't have it, and you have to go with your own experience as an expert and say, even though I don't have the data yet, we've given it as much time as we can, as much budget as we have available. But with our expertise, I do still feel it's worth testing, moving this to a little bit more of a granular structure for this element of the account. So it's going to be something you got to feel out and you got to try over time.
Yeah. How practical is that? I don't know. It's one of those things where you just got, like, it is very direct based on your own data and just looking at the data over a certain amount of time and making that decision. I do think leaning more on the granularity side is a bit better than the consolidated approach, just from my personal opinion. But every business is different. And some businesses, if your budget's small, it's better to have a consolidated approach versus if you've got a larger budget, it's over time, it tends to be better with granularity for better reporting, better structure, and just better control.
Okay.